Hello, everyone. Welcome to Trench Talk. I'm your host, Lek, here with Mr. Lunar Army, aka Legendary on YouTube, the more famous among the two of us. It's become a pattern with people I host. Hello, Legendary.
Hey, Lick, how's it going?
This is not stilted at all. This is totally normal how we talk. Anyway, okay, cutting the bullshit. We're here to talk about planes, Airborne. There was recently the devs put out a dev blog talking about how, hey, summer update, Airborne's delayed. What did we think about that? Crying emoji?
Well, it's one of those situations where do you want something to come out knowing it's going to be busted and half finished, kind of like some of the previous major updates, or do we want to wait things out and actually have a complete package? Because
There's, I will say,
it is a bit of both
I will
in this
say,
situation.
I will say, as much as I agree with that, there's also some cope about, oh, a delayed thing is eventually good, which is not true. Delayed things can still be bad, but um, given that they're talking about it still being like a ways away, it sounds like they probably need the time. I had okay. You're gonna have to read off the sections because I can't scroll off on my monitor to read them. But first we're gonna go over everything that we've seen in the dev blog. Then we're gonna talk about what's actually been confirmed for Airborne. Finally, we're gonna wrap up with some miscellaneous bullshit, some yapping, just talking about what we either think is probably gonna happen that hasn't been confirmed yet, or otherwise just things that are we like really cool, or maybe just we'll go off on random tangents. Actually, that's a guarantee. Welcome to Trench Talk. Let's get into it. Legendary, start us off by telling me what was the biggest part that you found of the three things that they really showed off. What is it in your mind was the biggest thing that came with this announcement, other than the delay that it's coming out in October or November now?
So I think the biggest thing for me is the scout plane basically coming in. It was the big thing that was released in the latest blog. For those
I
who
mean,
don't know, I've sort of been making like half-assed like prediction of what the actual
no,
content is going to be like.
everyone's done their
Yeah,
homework for
everyone's doing
this.
homework. Yeah,
Everyone's done
yeah, a
their
little,
pre-reading. They all know everything.
little bit of speculation.
They've watched
Yeah,
your hour-long videos about where you talk about planes. They're very
yeah.
good. You should, regardless. I'm miming here, but you should watch them. They're very good. But yeah, the scout plane, I will say, I was not. I was expecting to see like four, maybe five classes of planes, but it feels like we're getting more like six or seven. I don't know what you feel on that.
So my biggest concern when it comes to airborne content, and this is still a concern I know that the devs have been worried about when they release new stuff, specifically major updates, is they want everything in the update to be accessible to multiple layers of different Foxhole players that we have in the game, right? It's not just like the big regiments that get toys. It's not just like super organized squads that get toys. It's like every single thing in Foxhole has a different layer of accessibility to it. And the big thing for me was like, how the hell do you make Airborne accessible to, the dude that only has like 2 hours to play a week or 2 or 3 hours to play like, every other day, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this is why the scout plane was such a big jump out for me because I was like, oh wow, they actually have the Warden recon plane. Hopefully the Colonials get one, but at least the Wardens are getting a recon plane, which means that this will probably be the barrier of entry to aircraft.
Yeah, I
Very much so. Like a light tank is the barrier of entry to tanking, and
it's gonna be
a
so
gunboat.
interesting.
Yeah,
It's gonna be so well. It's funny because something light tanks are actually more expensive than the actual intro to
whatever.
tanking, which is the falchion, which is the medium, right? Or if you're
Sure.
on Warden, just build any fucking medium. Never give your intro to tanking should never be light tanking unless you're specifically talking light tanks right when they unlock. Please God, if you are a new player, don't build light tanks. They're not good. They are complete ass in the current meta. Like,
Sure.
anyway, no. Tanks aside, thank you for opening up the conversation there. Because I will say, I do think that it, like, basing this pure, like, on how the devs talked previously about how they wanted to allocate content and like give different tiers of gameplay depending on what type of player you are. I do think this is a really wise call on your part, talking about like there's going to be something that's like for the more casual players, because I think the big thing with Naval is that the air quote 2 hour Jimmy is meant to be either a repair monkey on a large ship or
Yeah.
or just getting a gunboat, right? Like
Yeah.
the thing is, everyone can get a gunboat, everyone can get a super tank. Like resources aren't expensive in Foxhole, time is, right? Like
Yeah.
do you have
Time is
the
the ultimate
actual
resource.
do you
Yeah.
have like you like we're in late war in fucking war 126. Like how many nukes have been launched or like even made, like 13, 14, where it's like
Uh, are we talking about public known nukes or like what nukes
well,
have been?
I mean, this I don't know when this will maybe this will come out tomorrow. I hope it'll come out like relative. I'm not busy tomorrow. I'll probably upload it tomorrow. But so we'll talk. Points aside that there are hidden nukes sitting in stockpiles waiting to be used because we lack targets currently. 126 especially, well, partly because it's currently 59 day long war. I think we're very much aware of the fact that resources are infinite, but time isn't. And
Yeah.
when we get into like the conversation of like what are players allowed to get to and what, because it's not just that the devs don't think that every player is entitled to every layer of content. Otherwise, everything would be free and we'd be playing like Battlefield but big map, right? But this isn't Battlefield but big map. This isn't Battlefield 6. This is, or Battlefield 7 or whatever you want to call it, or Battlefield
Yeah.
5.5 or I've not played Battlefield. I hear everyone's raving about Battlefield 6, but that's another conversation. Um, Long story short, Airborne, certainly I certainly understand the whole idea of like there's gonna be some things that players just will like, you have to let normal players get access to the concept of flying, but much like the whole light tank medium and then like battle tanks versus super heavies, or the gunboat then destroyer then battleship type distinction, like there's gonna be some things where if you don't have the time or the connections, you're probably just not going to get to experience them, and that's just kind of how Foxhole's built. But
No, no, and I totally get that. But this is, I guess, this is why I sort of dip into the idea that having a delay to the game is fine, and I know we're going to probably talk about the impact of that delay, but
yeah, like
delaying the game, in my opinion, is fine if we get
Airborne in like
Airborne in
October, November.
yes. Yeah, yeah, but the delay is important for me because I would like Airborne to be the first major update that Siege Camp releases,
That
where we actually get almost everything on the first pass.
yeah.
Because Inferno definitely didn't have it,
Okay.
and Naval arguably was when Naval originally released, it was very much a test bed for things that were going to be added later
Yeah,
on in the game.
I'll have a contention here, which is that I don't think anyone is going to disagree with the idea of we should have updates that are complete packages and not releasing with like half the content missing Naval. I don't think
Yes.
anyone's going to disagree with that contention, but I will actually take like a devil's argument, or fuck, what devil's advocate,
Advocate. Yeah.
devil's lawyer type argument, where not that I think that the update should be launched incomplete, but I understand the idea of like not launching with all the content immediately, so that way you can like have it be like changed up and altered for like a few updates into the future, where you're feeling like it's not just like suddenly everything is new in one go. Because I think one of the things that allows for is that the meta doesn't immediately settle upon just one update like after like a month. Instead, what winds up happening is you get this big update, but then everything is tweaked and changed, and so like the meta is allowed to be a little bit more diverse for a little bit longer. You know what I mean?
Yes. No.
Yeah,
I know exactly what you mean.
yeah, and
But
yeah,
the biggest concern I have though, originally when when Naval and when Inferno dropped,
the
was
lack of fire trucks or the lack
the
of
lack of the
entire,
fire trucks,
yeah.
which I don't know about you, but I really feel like that the when fire trucks were eventually announced and then released for us to test in one of the updates. I think it was like update 48 or 49.
Uh,
The devs finally like said that, oh yeah, we actually had the fire truck planned for Inferno, but we wanted you guys to suffer, cure effing bases being permanently on fire when and again, I'm not gonna beat around the bush here. One faction got fire rockets and one faction did not.
yeah, well, I mean, hey, here's the Collie complaints about Winferno, even though
Yeah.
something Colonials won that war, but I think no, yeah, there's certainly I don't know how to very the softest way I could put it is extreme miscalibrations of like
Yes. Yeah.
of content expectations for what makes good content where I think to riff on something that you said is that nothing in the game has perfect counters, but if there's no counter, that creates incredibly one-dimensional metas. Holy shit! That was kind of Inferno before they turned like the fire notch down a little, right?
We're still stuck on that on in naval, like to this day. Like we are still fighting large holes, and it just so happens that right now there's two sources of large holes, and Airborne's probably gonna have the third. So
Large holes is such an
it sucks.
this
It sucks.
actually
It's horrible. I hate it.
this
I
brings
hate
us
large holes.
into other aspects of well we should really talk about the other things that they've added other than just well we kind of mentioned the dive bomber and then we went off to this whole conversation about adding content and what we're hoping for but to bring it back to people that want like the breakdown of what's actually happening in a way that I think actually talks about how the game works and not just is like a summary that like a chat gpt summary of what the devs like have posted on their blog. Basically, the TLDR is there's the dive plane, there's the concept art for the like hangars and the like runways and the airstrips, and what was it? What was oh yeah the physics they've leaned away from the simulator physics and more towards simplistic like arcadey physics. They didn't use the word arcadey. They just said, I think they said simple or simplistic or non-sim or something like that. Like, don't expect like a plain sim like style game, right?
Yeah. Yeah, if you want like a true dogfighting experience, whether it be in the third person like over the shoulder sort of combat that you'd get from what are the examples they gave?
There's a
World of
there's
Warplane? Not World of
I think
Warplanes, World of no
they gave
what's
some
that
like
arcade?
kind of game
Yeah.
The examples that jump
Elite
out to my mind.
Dangerous? Elite Dangerous, I think,
Elite
is one of the
Dangerous is
examples they
sci-fi.
gave. Yeah.
I thought they gave like War Thunder and like
Oh,
Warpath
War
Red
Thunder,
Dragon
yeah,
or
it was War
something
Thunder.
like that. But
Yeah. So basically they just said if you're looking for that experience of just pure dogfighting sim, that is not what it's about.
which
And honestly, I can kind of get because when trains were announced, people were like super excited, like, oh yeah, a third person over the shoulder train sim, thinking like a complicated system, like balancing trains and weights and shit like that. But
I
at the
don't
end of
think
the day,
people no
what
I
no, they were people with I
no
saw
as
the Reddit threads at the time where
as the
people were like,
number
oh my
no
god, I can't
as
wait
the
to be a
number
coal
one train
shoveler.
goon of the time that was not what people were excited about trains for.
Okay.
Like
Fair.
the whole thing that was like player driven logistics infrastructure, that was what it was about, especially about the fact that because so many people were like, oh like tracks won't be pre-built, and that
Oh, I
actually
remember that.
that brings us into a area of contention actually on the on the dev blog, which is are airstrips going to be like player built or dev built? Because the really weird thing is they kind of imply both in the same post, and
Yeah, it's actually a little bit confusing.
it's
At the very least, it looks like players will be involved in the handling of a CV, but whether or not you're building a relic base style facility or you're building like the old nuke sites or you're actually like just freedom to build whatever you
Basically,
like,
yeah. Is it?
facility style.
Yeah.
It could go either way. It actually could go either way. I'm not entirely sure.
Here's the tough thing, right? It's so hard to discern because it could be one, it could be the other, or it could be both. Because they call it a world structure, which most of the time implies like a relic base or a logi town or some preset dev structure, right? But the thing is, world structure apparently in the files is also used for like storm cannons and like other entities that are just visible on the world map, right?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah, you're right.
But like
I think it's
the
it
tough
just
thing
shows
based
up in
on
the
that
map.
is that
Yeah.
also like airstrips are fucking huge, and you need to have like enough area for them. Some people drastically overstate like, oh, you'd need to have it be preset because otherwise players would not be able to fit them anywhere. And I'm like, just look at how many rail yards there are, man. I don't think it would be that tough for player built like airstrips. I think the harder like I think it's I think it would be really fucking boring for balancing reasons if they were all preset as well. And I think there's like a number of things that push me towards them being like player built, which is the fact that in the slides that they posted with the dev blog, it calls like the airstrip modular and like customizable, which the problem the part of the problem is that leans to me towards like maybe the airstrip like the hangars and like a bit of the runway is like preset, but then players have control to do some amount of airstrip beyond that, because like the slides also like show a bunch of different layouts, kind of implying that players are designing different airstrips. And to bring up the railway example again, a lot of people were like, "Oh, their railway is going to be pre-built and all this shit," and it's like, knowing what the devs have done over the past 8 years, following how like every single feature is implemented, like they initially did like the Moore's trench line because they were like, "Oh, trenches would break the engine." They did trenches, and then it's like, oh, people were saying like, oh, trains are gonna be like player built because it would be insane with how much map clutter there is to have players do it. Then they player built trains. It feels to me like the pattern is obvious that they want every aspect of it to be like player driven, even if they want some aspect of it to maybe have like some lever that they can pull on for like dev control. You know what I mean? Like how gravel is based on the Logitown refinery, and like so the foundation of all facility stuff starts in the dev world, even if it like then later goes off on its own, right?
Yeah. So I think if we were to make a really good educated guess on whether or not airfields, for example, the airfield build structure, is actually something that spawned in the world, or whether or not is actually completely player onus built, we have to consider two main areas. And the first one would be the manufacturing of aircraft themselves, and then the scale at which these structures will exist within the game world. For the first aspect, I think I'm
Well,
not
no, they've
too
already
far
shown
off by
they've
saying
shown its
that they're
facilities.
well, they did. The only thing they really showed was it being on trains. Now, that being said,
You know, it looks like
could,
every other facility part. It's going to
it's
be
going
built on
to,
a small
yeah,
pad, and it's like they could.
or
I
it's going to
mean,
be built on a
they
launch
could
pad, yeah, or
they
something
could
like
make
that. Yeah,
another they could make another Logitown building like the construction yard or the mass production factory. But should I state this? They haven't done that since like 2020. I think the mass production factory was like 2020, 2021, or maybe even
yeah,
2019. Like these are old fucking structures. They have not added new like Logitown structures in actually like 70% of this game's lifespan. Every single new thing is facilities, and nothing would indicate that it's different. And on like the topic of, I want to let you get back to the whole like you had another point regarding the scaling and whatnot that I would love to hear about. But like when I just look at these images, the hangar has like 3 pads on it, and you know what it makes me think of? The dry docks, because people said like
yeah,
because when you think of like this is again like what I said, where it's like players expected train track to be pre-placed, and then it mostly wasn't, and then the same thing happened with dry docks, and then it just wasn't, and they had the like lowering and raising like gate thing it's like so much of this implies to me that it's going to be player built because the devs know that's sort of what players want. It's yeah. Anyway, please talk. Like, did you have a different point to make? I hope you did regarding scale.
Well, so okay, so we agree that at least that the airplanes are going to be built in facilities, so either on the large assembly pads or the small assembly pads, right? That's a given.
Yeah,
that's a given. That's a given. We're not questioning that. Now it comes into the question of how scalable are these world structures going to be, and how you place them, because currently the largest singular item that you can make in the game is the dry dock, and the dry dock for the most part has the most like complex strategic layer in the game. When you place the dry dock down, there's only like realistically like 6 spots in the game where you can put a dry dock safely.
Okay, well,
because
there's a difference between safely or can even build, right? And I think like
yes, or build, yes.
Yeah.
Now the reason why I bring this up is depending on how realistic that they're going to work with the scale at which the runways work based on the aircraft that is going to be taking off from them, we're going to need a lot of fucking open space.
Well,
and there's no easy way to go about it. Like you need a large runway for a large aircraft.
The thing is,
okay, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, I think we should like keep in mind, Foxhole has like its own like scaling, right? Like the battleships are like the size of like coastal vessels. They're not like actual real life battleships, right? Everything is in its own weird scale, but yeah, I figured that's an important point to mention.
No, I understand that, but from an actual gameplay perspective, at some point, we do need to acknowledge that these airfields are going to have to be built in relatively large, wide open spaces. And when you build an airfield in a large, wide open space, you open a massive surface area that is now locked away to essentially, quote unquote, facility LARP that needs to be defended and needs to also be strategic enough for it to matter. So I genuinely think that we're kind of speculating whether or not the slides that were shown from in the latest dev blog is it could either be world placed structures, or it could actually be facility player built. I'm actually leaning towards that it might be both. And the reason why I say that is if I look at the airfield world structure slide specifically, we distinctly have 2 types of structures. And I'm thinking that I really think the really large hangar might be a storage depot level structure that is strategically placed in certain parts of the world. For example, the Reach is the most obvious one where an airfield would go.
Yeah, in Stone Cradle, yeah.
In Stone Cradle, the Stone Cradle one, as well as Breaker Town also has a in Slack and Shelf, north of the big ship, right? There's also a giant airfield-like structure over there. So to me, that kind of screams that really large super weapon level aircraft. So your big bombers, your paratrooper bombers, etc., etc., etc. Logi drop planes, whatever we get. I think those might exist and can only deploy out of those structures.
I mean, do you mean like there will be the option to build player built airfield anywhere, but the only places that you'll be able to launch the heavier options are specifically at these like storage depot style like airfields?
I think I'm kind of leaning towards it, or at the very least, there will be some predefined sort of structures that players can build and maintain, and you can't put too much facility around it, or you can't put too much like bunker bases around it, because this also leans into that idea that I initially opened with I still think that the devs are going to lean on this, like anyone should be able to just drop in and like make a quick scout plane and have some fun. Like that I don't think that's too far out of the sort of like quote unquote player vision that they have for accessibility for everyone.
So,
and this could be something that does that.
I disagree in part. Here's what I mean.
Okay.
So that's sort of okay. Here's a number of there's a number of points that I don't think any one of these is like a slam dunk kill shot on your like general like point you're making, but I think
Yep.
they all sort of like chip away at it, which make me a lot less like oh like that's the obvious conclusion. Like so one is the idea that the fact that there's these airstrips that exist in the world prior to a feature being added, I don't think that goes any way in indicating that there will be like dev placed like that there'll be dev placed structures, because if that was true, well, I mean, we had trenches before we got like player built trenches. We had railway before we got player built railway, and they have nothing to do with each other. Like we have things that exist in the game that just don't wind up being anything except like lore pieces, right? And then on the topic of specifically like what you said regarding like you don't think people would be able to just super easily integrate with the system, I'd point to large ships, right? Where if you're a newer player and you want to experience large ships, or even just like a player that doesn't have much time, like large ships have a world spawn on them, right? Like
Yeah.
the way that it works is you're not expected to necessarily like have control of the large ship or of the dry docks or any of like the major essential components, but you can still participate in like the gameplay. And if we're likening it sort of to like light tanks or that kind of thing, right? I think in my mind, Airborne is like meant to be a step above tanks, and a step, but like a step below naval, if that makes sense. Where with tanks, if you want like a variant or whatever, and you don't, and you only have a little bit of time, you still have to engage with something that someone else built with a facility, right? Like the devs are already used to having things where the only solution is like player cooperation. There is no dev structure if you want to make a flame tank. There is no dev structure if you want to make a rocket vehicle. Like it's all you have to coordinate with other players if you don't have your own place to build this, right? And
Yes.
yeah,
And I get that, but again, you're citing not to pick your argument apart here, but you're citing highly niche, highly specific weapons of war here, right?
I don't
Like
think
like rocket tank. To me, in my opinion, rocket tanks are not the barrier entry to artillery. Mortar tubes are. So if you want to try your hand at artillery, yes, us being big rig regiment players will be like, oh, we'll put the new players on a 150 gun and we'll just call out azimuth and they pull the trigger and they
well,
have fun. But for like the average Joe nobody player, that is already a very daunting challenge to get. Like getting your hands on a Thunderbolt and like 3 pallets of 150 is not something that the average player will easily have access to. It's
well,
only
I'd,
very
I'd,
specific regiments that do it.
I'd point
you
to
know?
the amount of randoms I see manning Thunderbolts half the time shooting at like piles of dirt, but jokes aside, I would disagree with that for the thing I said earlier, specifically that I don't think Airborne is the type of thing that is meant to be analogous with artillery, with tanks, with infantry, in terms of its
Sure.
level of like in terms of the barrier to entry. I don't think it's meant to be the same on the nearly the same tier as naval, where you have to set up this entire dry dock and this entire facility and all this stuff, right? But
Okay, but this is sorry, this is the point I was going to make. The barrier of entry for naval is gunboat.
yeah, okay.
It's not destroyer or frigate, right? That's the general consensus people have. It's like, oh, if you want to get into naval, you know, one faction is like very much open to getting new players
Here-
onto ships and playing with them, and the
yeah.
other faction is like, oh, it's regiment locked. You have to join a regiment to play naval on the other faction, right? But the end of the day, if your avenue of attack is going to be naval bombardment, you start with a gunboat, and anyone can make a gunboat as long as you have
Armats, yeah,
125 armats.
I
right?
think
So.
I think my big issue with that then is I don't see like planes offer such a uniquely strong capability in terms of their ability to just like move over the battlefield in like quickly like move over the battlefield, to scout easily, to potentially enable partisan activity, to potentially do so many unique capabilities that I cannot see them having the same barrier of entry that they have on, like I said, artillery and tanks. And even on naval, like I think you'd agree with me that the capabilities of gunboats, aside from like flame mortaring tier 2, tends to not be like that crazy. Like you can go in partisan iron ships and freighters, right? But you're not generally going to be like committing to the like these crazy like the capabilities sort of reflect the resource cost, and I think even a scout plane is offering you way more in terms of capabilities than a just a simple gunboat is. So what I would say to that is specifically like I imagine that airstrips are the kind of thing where they're gonna be like so big that you're not really gonna be able to like privately own them, even if they're like privately like operated, if that makes sense. Like I feel the way that things are gonna shake out is gonna be so that as a newer player, if you want to, or a someone or like a lower investment player, the way that you're gonna have to experience Airborne if you don't have the time to maybe make these planes is maybe you'll have to settle for just being a paratrooper or getting a crew position in in someone else's bomber or someone else's like medium-sized plane, right? Or maybe you can build one of the smaller planes via someone else's facility in a similar way to like a rocket vehicle, right? Like when you say that mortars are the opening up into artillery versus rocket vehicles are a more niche option, I agree, but I don't think that I don't think just a plane on its own is niche. I think planes just offer a fundamentally like different like type of capability that requires there to be more gatekeeping, even if that means that you necessarily have to like and I would couple this with specifically all of the pushes the devs have made to make facilities more public with the whole like private queues, like the 5-person private queues and stuff that you can do. Like I have to imagine that their idea basically comes together with like player built runways and player built plane factories where as a lower investment player, you're expected to do more work than you would to get a tank or to get a mortar. Um, but like it's still like gonna be relatively like inexpensive because you're not expected because you're expecting those airstrips to be like strategic team level assets, not like private facilities, right?
Well, but this is the interesting thing with the dev block is now we're opening that avenue of it might be because I agree that the barrier of entry for the most part for most of the content nowadays is like let's say effective weaponry is still facility lock large regiment gameplay. Yeah, what gunboat might kill some tier two. One mortar team might be able to also kill some tier two, but you're still able to deploy weapons like that regardless of your level of dedication to the game. You could still play with those, and I think with what the devs have shown now is we might run into the possibility of specifically the large hangar being pre-placed world structures, but also we might be able to just also build them on our own at a armat, not an armat cost, a rare alloy cost or something like that. I think we run the possibility of we might just get to two versions of it, and we might just be able to use them.
I think you could
And
like
it could be interesting.
I think that's always a possibility, but I lean away from because in my mind, anytime the devs want a structure like that that's pre-placed in the world that has huge significant impact, like logistically, I think they usually like to restrict it to being only like to being dev exclusive as a dev exclusive lever. I don't really see them like because if it's something that they're willing to have players be able to build, they're gonna generally like they build things that players build differently than they make things that are dev exclusive, if that makes sense. Like, and I think that's like a good place to leave off on the whole like on that whole topic and move on towards more of what we actually saw in terms of the types of planes we got.
Sure.
But I will say I think that I think it's always possible, especially because of how vague and a lot of and how like contradictory some of the like things that are in the dev blog actually are, and the fact that the devs didn't outright state airstrips will be player built or airstrips will be found in the world for players to build facilities around. Like they didn't really say enough for us to like make one determination or the other. I think as a side thing related to airstrips, I will say that I kind of have a distaste towards the storage depot model type thing that they seem to be going for with it, regardless of if it's player built or dev made.
Yeah.
Um, I wish the planes. I wish they have small hangars for like refueling and repairs. And what I guess they predict planes being so cheap that like a shitload of planes are meant to exist, and a lot of players are meant to have like backup planes and whatever. But I was kind of hoping for a world in which planes would have to exist on the tarmac, maybe surrounded by garrisons, maybe like
Oh
inside
no,
of
no.
maybe inside
Yeah.
of
Okay.
or
The
maybe inside of hangars specifically to keep them safe from partisans, and not like, and when I say hangars I mean specifically like the plane still physically exists, you just have to like breach the door and get inside to destroy the plane, not like, hey, um I'm going to put my like magic my plane into this magical pocket dimension. I don't know. I find the magical pocket dimension a little bit less interesting, but I expect that to be sort of where they're going with it. So we'll see. I mean, regardless, then getting into like wherever they go with that, what are your thoughts on the dive plane? And then I guess the other plane is the Warden Scout plane, but the fact that that's amphibious, do you think like are we expecting them to do a symmetrical thing where the Colonial Scout plane is also amphibious, or maybe it's got like way better range to it so it can go further but it can't land in water, and like the dive plane and the torpedoes, like fuck, how is this gonna handle, how's naval gonna be impacted by all this, do you think?
I definitely think we're going with asymmetry here. So I'm hesitant to say that one faction is going to exclusively get weapon type A and other faction is going to exclusively get weapon type B, but that has been the pattern for the Warden Colonial split for the longest time now. So
I mean,
I actually went and rewatched the actual dev stream where they announced Airborne, which was infantry update like almost like 8 months ago now.
yeah.
And one of the things that they distinctly said was, "Oh, unlike the previous major updates, we are going to ensure that both factions at least have a fighter and a bomber." But they didn't specifically say that they were going to, be carbon copies of
Well,
each other, similar to Hatchet and Devitt are in terms of that level of symmetrical gameplay.
I was
So
gonna,
I
yeah.
so I think that we are going to probably get something along the lines of. I get the feeling that colonials are going to be more, dumb ordnance, drop it on the ground and do lots of explosive damage, type of like impactfulness on the battlefield, and similar to naval, wardens are going to have more versatile, more all-rounded weapons, but don't specifically pack the same punch as the very, very specifically designed colonial stuff.
Okay.
So we saw the Warden recon plane, but that recon plane will probably be very, very versatile in the type of things that it could do. Like just off the top of my head, that recon plane might be able to land on roads, which would make it incredibly
Well,
unique.
well, I
And
mean,
then
I think I would. The kind of expectation I have is that I think most planes are probably going to be able to land on roads, but it might be trouble
maybe,
taking off
yeah,
from them. Like it
yeah.
might cause them damage or it might cause them whatever, but like that depends on how they simulate damage for collisions with planes. But I think
So
I wanted to jump in there and say, I thought they did specify that there wouldn't be like a capability gap. Like everyone's getting a fighter, bomber, like paratrooper plane, like Logi plane. Like I'm wondering what I'm wondering. Like I have to imagine the same extends for dive bombers and scout planes. But do you think it does? It sounded like you didn't think it did, or do you just mean that in the sense of you expect like one team's scout plane to be amphibious and the other one to just like the colonial one is just going to have better mileage, right? Or
So I wholeheartedly believe that I don't think they're gonna make that big of it. It's hard to say actually. Now that I think about it, it is actually hard to say because Siege Camp might be just crazy enough where they go and they say, okay, we've reviewed the gameplay of Foxhole for like the last, year or 2 years, and we really noticed that Wardens love to play in like naval hexes. Like they tend to always get the island maps within the first, 4 weeks of a war, or first 3 weeks of a war.
if you want to say some of their planes will have uniquely amphibious traits, I don't doubt that.
So that's what I'm saying. Like when I saw the scout plane sketches, it literally has a pontoon attachment to the wheels. So this might just be one of those situations where they go and they say, okay, we noticed that the Wardens love to play in naval hexes a lot, so we're going to make at least some of their aircraft more amphibious and, be able to like field them out in the ocean or someplace like that. Mm-hmm. Or, maybe there's some Warden pipe dream, I would probably guess with Julian's vision for the Warden factions themselves, because Julian loves the fucking Wardens, that the Great Warden Dam, for example, that northern aspect of the Great Warden Dam in Howell County, right? That entire area, that dam is just filled with like scout planes just sitting out in the ocean and, just
away
like
from
this
all the preening hands of partisans.
Yeah, maximum pun gaming where you just have like a swarm of these scout planes that just go out and cause trouble, and yeah. I mean that could be a pretty cool, unique thing that defines the factions apart. But ultimately, it would be completely insane if Siege Camp decides. No. It would be completely insane if Siege Camp makes one vehicle gives one faction more accessibility to entry-level vehicles like the scout plane, and not give something equivalent to the other side, and then play around with that weird niche balance idea.
No, yeah, I feel like what they...
It would be insane. Like but that being said, I wouldn't be surprised if this dive bomber C that the concept art that we see in last week's blog update, that might be the Colonial Fighter as well. That might just be the Colonial Fighter.
That's not. No, it's not. Wait. Oh, you didn't. Wait. This is actually something from the dev blog that I'm surprised we actually forgot about. There was one other thing, and we literally see the Colonial Fighter. It's not the dive plane. It's in the airstrip one. It's the little. I think someone said really? It's like. I'm not a plane nerd, but someone said it looks like the Toksot 88 or something like that, the Soviet plane.
Oh, the one that's sitting in the... Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. You can
the one that's sitting in the
hangar,
thing.
yeah. It's the little one with the, like, little trapezoidal wings and the, like, very circle... Like, it looks like baby's first plane type thing, but...
But I don't think that's a scout plane. That looks like a proper fighter.
No. That's 100% the fighter, is what the impression I had on it, and it seems like most people did. I will say, in terms of, like... I don't think... what I wonder is, because they keep talking about, like, both factions are going to have, like, all the same capabilities and all that shit, right? What I deeply wonder is that's two colonial bombers, right? What if the difference isn't that, like, both, like, one faction just gets a submarine and the other gets a destroyer, and then, like, and then there's no equivalent, like, naval.
Ugh.
What if instead the difference is each faction gets one thing of each category, but then each faction then sometimes gets multiple in certain categories. Like, Colonials get multiple bombers, because you were saying, like, heavy ordnance. And then sometimes Wardens get multiple scout planes, or Wardens get multiple, like, troop transports, or multiple fighters or something. Like, I wonder if it would be a miracle if we saw something, because I think that's what makes, like, tanking so well balanced these days, is that unlike back in the day, there are just so many different, like, tanks available with so many different unique capabilities that, like, the individual balance of any one tank doesn't usually make or break the tank balance. And I wonder if they're going to do the same thing with planes, where they just have, like, 20 different planes that they're going to throw at us. Probably not that many, but, like, do you get what I mean?
Yeah, so realistically, I think there's going to be like I did with my Yap videos is I think wholeheartedly there's going to be three levels of aircraft that both factions will get, but I don't I really do think that we're not going to get a rock paper scissor completely asymmetric counter system like we do with naval.
I think people would genuinely uninstall if we got something like naval. Oh my
If we go,
god.
I think if we go down the route of naval again, where naval is so incrementally lopsided that when one non-naval asset, aka the 300 mil shot, got changed, caused and completed utter like fundamental breaking of the persistent world to the point where we're now playing for 2 months. I think if we get that scenario again with Airborne, I think genuinely we're going to have a lot of vets burn out without giving it a fair shot. They'll play for like 3 wars.
Well, it
And
might
then
be
they'll
a fair
score
shot, and
points.
they might burn out regardless if it's that bad. But
Yeah, but so on in that aspect, I do think we're going to get more than just one vessel like we got with naval per category. So
wait, this is what I said.
yeah. No, I know what you're saying,
Okay, yeah.
but I still think that there is going to still be some. I guess I'm pseudo agreeing with you that there will be some level of categorization between these different categories and their interactions with one another. Like fighters will counter bombers. Fighters will
Well,
also be good against scouts.
well, yeah.
But scouts are quintessential for both fighters and bombers to succeed.
What I'm sort
But
of imagining is something like you're saying. You can hear me, yeah?
yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
What I'm sort of imagining is something basically akin to like the tank like matchup where you have like your chieftains, which are your bombers, which are you can technically lob a 250 at a tank and it'll deal some decent damage, but I would be remiss if I called those anti-tank rounds, right?
Yeah.
So like you'll definitely have like a soft rock paper scissors type matchup, I imagine, and then like I said, I think what I'm hoping for is that each category will like see like multiple planes because I think one of the big issues with naval is that the devs just kind of add one of each category, and so if your if your individual like thing is dog shit in that category, you have nothing. You can't do anything, right? But like with tanks, if one of your tanks is bad after a nerf that just makes it completely irrelevant, highwaymen, it's not like the entire outlaw chassis just disappears, right? Like and I think that's a big issue with like naval is that everything like hinges on a knife's edge because there's no cushioning the blow of like making a single balance change to one vehicle being like affecting an entire category of capabilities where I'm really hoping they do something different with planes and just have more planes and more variety of planes just to like kind of counter that. Yeah.
Yeah. So my prediction is, as I've stated, and I'm leaning in. I'm leaning into agreeing with you. I still hold that Warden aircraft is going to be more versatile. There might be taxiing on water. Hell, they might even have some unique aircraft. Like they might have a unique bomber that can like take off of water, and Colonials just don't have that. But then we might have a thing of like now that I think about it more, that fighter is looking very MPFable. So maybe we do just have like a cheaper, more spammable aircraft
I
that
don't
is
know.
more
No,
that is more like
don't
landlocked.
hurt me like this. Don't hurt me with the cheaper, but it's
No,
meant
no,
to
it's not
be
gonna.
worse. It's
It's
meant to
not
be
gonna.
worse.
Okay, it's not gonna be MBFable. But let's say for okay, this is me Logi guy kicking in now. Like let's say a fighter plane takes 24 hours to print, like a BT does, or like a day and a half. What if the colonial unique spin is, oh, we can't take off of water like an amphibious aircraft with pontoon shoes or pontoon wheels, and instead our thing is like, well, our fighter takes 6 hours to print as opposed to 24.
If you want to say, well, I wouldn't be. I get what you're being a bit hyperbolic there, but for emphasis or whatever. But
Yeah,
I think
sure.
if anything, it would be. I think if anything, it would be like maybe colonials get like this naval capable aircraft, but then most of the like theirs aren't naval capable. But then Wardens maybe get a bomber that's amphibious, like you're saying, and then the Colonial bomber isn't amphibious. But then, like you said, there'd be like some other discrepancy. Like it's gonna be both factions get a bomber, but only one gets like a bomber that's capable of being amphibious. Both factions get a dive bomber, but maybe one of them has way better like steering, and the other has like a different unique capability, like it can hold more bombs or something. Like there's a lot of like asymmetrical stuff they can do without pulling a naval. But moving on, let's briefly go over like we're getting close to the end here, so I think we should briefly go over things that have otherwise been confirmed but seem to randomly get speculated on, and then we'll wrap up with just some last minute predictions, maybe not like the most in depth on those, just like think like a little bit of stuff that you've already said, and then if you have anything new based on this dev blog related to like air PvP. I think that's the one thing that you haven't covered yet, right?
Roger. Yeah.
All right.
So, okay. You first.
Oh, okay. No, it sounded like you were ready to go, so let's swing.
Okay. So, on one of the slides, a keyword pops out: torpedoes. Hangars can hold torpedoes. Are we going to have another sort of large hulls? And will Colonials finally have a non-Naki solution to punishing Warden large ships with, air-based torpedoes? What do you think?
The funny thing is that we're calling this the like maybe confirmed when that was explicitly on a slide, and I know it's subject to change or whatever, but I think airborne torpedoes are so weird because naval is like the second that one faction got a neutral torpedo launcher, the storm cannon, we immediately saw that naval just stopped being relevant. So I'm like, how are they gonna what are they gonna do to make naval relevant if suddenly any dipshit can just like fly in with a torpedo and instantly mission kill you from like anywhere? That just seems It's the kind of thing where it's like, it's unconfirmed, and part of me almost feels like they won't do it just because it would be too strong. But at the same time, it just feels like naval torpedoes or airborne torpedoes are just one of those things that, like, how are you gonna do that in like this style of game, or how are you gonna do airborne but not give like your planes an actual ship, like the very obvious and distinct like ship counter, right? But if you do, this aspect of gameplay that was already bad just becomes even worse, and it's like, okay, like I could see them going either way on it, but I think that's mostly confirmed. I was hoping we'd be touching more on things that like have already been like 100% confirmed before we got into the guesses. I was implying like paratrooping and airdrops because those are confirmed, but it seems like people don't.
Is pre-generated CGI confirmed? I mean, I would say it would be like extreme false advertising if it wasn't, but yeah.
I mean, paratrooper uniforms are in the game, and then if you want to say airdropping isn't 100% confirmed, I mean, like, I don't think it's 100% confirmed, but like, basically every statement that they've talked about airborne, they're talking about like it impacting every single, like it impacting and being impacted by every single aspect of Foxhole, which, like, if you're not gonna have airdrops, I mean, like, okay, it just feels so obvious, you know what I mean? It's like one of those things where it's
it would be weird if you didn't.
If you want to like I'm comfortable saying with like 99.999% like confidence that we're gonna see airdrops. Maybe, I don't know if it would necessarily be in like the first update, but like it's one of those things where it's like sometimes there's like couching your language with regards to things that like are coming. Like you get a whisper of, oh, it's the naval update, I wonder if we're gonna get X, Y, and Z. Like people were like, oh, I wonder if we're gonna get submarines, and then we got submarines, and they're like, oh my god, they actually did it, wait, what? Because people were like super couching their language, and a lot of people didn't think we would get them, right? But
well,
I think
okay, well, so let me ask then, and if we stay topical to confirmed stuff that we're getting, do you think Colonials are going to be Paradrop exclusive?
No, they already said that. No, they already said that wasn't. They already said both factions are getting paratroopers.
But this goes back to my previous point. Both factions are going to get a bomber class and a fighter class
and a paratrooper
probably a scout
class and a transport class And a paratrooper slash transport slash.
Transport, paradrop, and I don't know. Like
No,
it's hard to say because
no, all of their
it's hard to.
statements,
I don't know.
all of their
But
statements
I haven't.
imply both. I'm like, I know this is one of those things where it's like, oh, DevMan isn't being 100% explicit, but I'm confident in saying both factions are getting paratrooper. Like, do you know that'd be like this? Okay, they talked so much about how they like learned from Naval to not do the same thing, where one faction doesn't get a capability. They're like, it could always happen, but I think you would have a burning fury if one faction like just didn't get paratroopers, right? No?
Well, I don't know. Both factions eventually got a submarine, but
No,
Colonials had
you
to wait
were
7 months for it.
remember like 40 minutes ago, you were the one saying that they're not going to make the same mistake that they did in Naval and they're going to launch it as a complete update, right? That's what you were arguing.
Yes, I did say that, but I think they're still good. We're still gonna get asymmetry, right?
No,
we're not gonna get bomber A and bomber B. Just one is colored blue and the other one's colored green, right?
No, I agree with that, but I mean that in the sense of like one scout plane's going to be amphibious and the other won't be. Or like with paratroopers, maybe the Colonial one supports more players and the Warden one is faster or something. Like these are like you can have the asymmetry, but both factions are 100% getting paratroopers. I don't think there's a world in which it doesn't happen. Like it would be a repeat of Naval, like like a catastrophe to the same degree of just like missing content, right, from a major update. Anyway, like I'm looking at the notes here for things to wrap up on. We've touched on most stuff. Oh yeah, because I still think like planes are being facility made. I think I would be comfortable saying that's confirmed. Same with planes existing on the front line. Some people are still like up in the air, pun intended, about that.
Got him. Yeah.
About that, like, because I know you have the take that there's going to be another one that's above it, and then they descend into the actual hex in order to like avoid like planes getting stuck at the border, right? I have to wonder like how are planes going to work with the border, and how like because obviously planes are going to exist and you're going to be able to shoot at them, but like your most recent 3 week ago video, like you're not going to be able to do much with like a rifle or an SMG. You're going to need to have like the flak guns, right? So
I the big thing is like we have to be realistic with aircraft, right? Aircraft need to go from hex to hex, and it would be really really weird if an airplane slams into a border and then gets stuck and then just hovers in midair while it crosses the border.
There's a lot of weird things about Foxhole, and although that would be one of the weirdest, I don't think it would be the weirdest thing that exists. Oh, wait. Oh, okay, I thought my mic cut out. No. Yeah, I don't think that would be the absolute peak of weirdness that this game has to offer, and I think everyone is half expecting it, and I think they might do it just purely for the bit, but in terms of, like, will they do your whole thing about, like, a hex above it, like a universal air hex above the hexes? I think it's plausible. But I would definitely put that in.
It would make the most sense if they're actually going to add a dogfighting layer to the game as well, because they did say that dogfighting would be weird if Airborne didn't have some level of like dogfighting capabilities.
Well, why couldn't you
to the game
Why
itself.
couldn't you dogfight in like a normal map then? You could absolutely.
Because dogfighting is uniquely to the aspect of you would be fighting other aircraft with no other immediate interference.
No, you can have other interference in the middle of a dogfight.
Then it wouldn't be a dogfight.
No, it still could be.
Then it's just air combat. Then it's just no.
Okay.
It's not. Dogfighting is unique. They specifically said dogfighting, and dogfighting is specifically unique to its air versus air only fighting. There's no sort of external factors that come into play.
Okay, this might just be my not knowing airplane words. I don't think I would use dogfighting that way, but I'm a layman in terms of like plane understander. And I'm gonna be honest, I feel like the devs just say dogfighting as shorthand for planes will fight planes.
Yeah, no, planes will fly planes, but that's it's the same degree up until this patch where naval warfare has literally been like boat versus boat exclusive. Like
No, it's not. But it's not boat versus boat exclusive.
very rarely does a ground-based weapon have an impact on the outcome of naval battles, except for this match. Okay,
Well, I mean,
that's just
in any
yeah.
unless you're having like open sea, and again, I'm not saying this like, okay, I think my issue is with the way that you're presenting it, as if they need this hex specifically for like dogfighting. When I feel like they could very easily dogfight in a normal hex, right? They would just be fighting in an area that's like away from the front, like the front line, or maybe a little bit higher, not necessarily as high as the other like sky like super sky hex, but definitely like high enough to be away from the battlefield, if that makes sense. Like I
Yeah,
don't know.
but I also agree to the fact that
What?
dogfighting in that sense is there is isolated combat in
Yeah, and
that
I think
aspect
you
of
can
the
still
game.
get that
I
within the
mean,
normal hex. I don't think you
but
need like a special magical like I think the magical hex is like a decently plausible thing, but I don't think like you need that for dogfighting. I just think I think it works if that's your answer to how they're going to handle like region travel, but saying that like justifying it via oh, this is a hex exclusive for dogfighting just feels like I mean, unnecessary. Like, I feel like it's possible without it, but it's like a nice to have, if you know what I mean.
yes, but keep in mind that they added 6 hexes to the game just so large ships could brawl, and then ultimately
Um,
they killed, and then they ultimately killed it by making torpedoes
they
overpowered.
added, I mean, they added 4 hexes. Well, I know what you mean by they added 6 hexes, but only 4 of those were naval. Half those were already like naval hexes. And what they really, like, mostly did was just take away parts of the land that had to exist for bridges pre naval, right? Like, I would just say, like, I don't think it's gonna be like and like I don't think in Foxhole in a ship you're never more than like a kilometer or like 600-ish meters away from like land, and for like sky based combat I don't see this being like a you have to get super far away from land to have like sky versus sky combat without any interference. I think it's just going to be like a situational thing where sometimes there is. And again, I don't think the devs like selected the word dogfight because they specifically mean plane versus plane exclusive, no interference, just plane versus plane, like Skyhex. I think they just meant it like there's gonna be plane fights. Like, I think we're overthinking it basically.
Okay, no, fair enough.
All right. Anyway,
Um,
any other uh like any other speculation related to like what we might see via there was a leak regarding I think someone saw it in one of the files that there was like engine gauges, yaw, pitch, bearing, and like a couple and like some other and like throttle and like a couple other things. So like what are you expecting there to be for plane versus plane combat? Like how do you handle one plane being above another just like causing issues with the camera and just being unable to see someone, or
um,
or just like or how do you think planes are gonna be in balancing? Like,
so my theory is that in terms of handling, I think planes will probably have some level of, pitching up and down. So you will be able to like directly impact your Z plane, like whether or not you're going higher up or lower down.
wait, this is
Um,
I
but I don't think we're going, as the devs alluded to, I don't think we're going to get complicated like aerial maneuvers or anything like that.
I mean
Maybe
no no
at
no no
maybe. Hmm?
I I would be careful there because I they didn't say like you're not going to be doing complicated air maneuvers. They just said like the flight models are simplified, right? It's not meant to be like the most realistic like plane combat game. I don't think that means that we're not going to have like variability in height as like an essential element of combat necessarily. But like because some people think like planes are just going to exist on a flat plane, tish, but like even in the trailer, you can see the planes blatantly like going up and down in the sky, like and like they're not doing like crazy complex maneuvers, mostly because the clips are like 3 seconds long each, but the bits where they're going over whatchamacallit, over Viper Pit and then over the Great Warden Dam, like it looks like they're going vertical there. Like I don't think simplified means like to the degree you might be like walking towards suggesting.
Yeah, but it's still, I don't know. It's still open. It's still. Let me think about it.
Because keep in mind, as much as there's gonna be like they don't want it to be like, which I part of me thinks it's a mistake. I think they should still strive to create the most skill based and interesting, fun gameplay. But like, if they have to make it a little simpler to make it so that there's fun cooperative gameplay, because that's Foxhole is a game about like a cooperative combat and shit, right? Like, and bringing all these different elements together. I think that's fine. I don't think that necessarily means they're going to go too far towards the simple or too far towards the simulation or whatever, right? Like, do you expect them to go like that level where it's basically just a numbers game and there's like very little like player skill involved, or
In air-to-air combat,
yeah?
I think it's going to play out very, very similar to gunboats, where you will have a lot of maneuverability and there will be some variance in like pitching left and pitching right and things like that. But ultimately, the net result of whoever wins a particular outcome will probably come down to the type of aircraft that you use in a particular type of situation.
Well, let's just assume
I,
let's
I,
just assume fighters, because I mean like I think it's obvious that if you're using like a more strategic level asset, you might get like soft countered or even hard countered by like fighters or other style, or like heavy fighters or other dedicated anti-air role aircraft, right? Like I don't think that's a controversial thing, but I'm mostly suggesting that like fighter v fighter duels or fighter v fighter squadron versus fighter squadron, I feel like I feel like, or at least I'd hope that they're toning down simulation doesn't mean that they're removing skill, just that they're making things a little bit easier for players to step into because they really want to see players working together and not just like a submarine issue where like most players take forever to be able to get to the point where they're having an impact. You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, in that regard, there will be some like skill based aspect to it, but ultimately, if you want the realistic outcome for it, then you're just going to have to field more, and you're going to have to field better.
Well, no, I mean
I
having more numbers or like better types of planes for the job is always gonna like I was saying. What I'm saying isn't meant to take away from that. I'm saying like removing that factor, there should always be the capability of a player's X factor to like for skill to throw like a wrench in the battle, but like not to like win unwinnable fights, but to change the outcome of unfair fights or to make fights even more unfair for you, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And I think part of that includes verticality. Anyway, we've been going at it for about an hour. Do we have any other yapping to that needs to be heard other than the pilot uniform and the paratrooper uniform? Which,
Cargo drops.
I mean, I know you're gonna want that as a Logi main, but
Well, I think cargo drops will be interesting because
wait, I
one
wait.
because one of the things that yeah, I know that you thought of that. Yeah, I know, probably. You think of all
No,
the
no, not
ideas,
that I thought
but
of it. I just remember you saying like what you were earlier talking about, like, oh no, I don't know if both factions are gonna get that.
well, maybe wardens have an ability. Maybe if wardens get to land on water, maybe we get to drop. We get to yeet shipping containers off the back of our planes. Who knows?
I mean, players are going to complain about if Okay, like CVs, like I have to imagine that the more like support focused vehicles are gonna have like less like crazy asymmetry to them, and they're gonna save more of the crazy asymmetry for like the bombers and the fighters, right? Like if they start making it so that like one faction gets a bluefin and one gets a like a I can't think of a pun, but you think of like a Walmart bluefin or
Oh
something
yeah,
of
yeah.
that, like just like a discount brand
Timu
bluefin.
Timu 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 Bluefin.
One faction gets fucking Timu Bluefin, the other gets Jack
Oh,
Ma's yacht kind of deal.
actually, I have the best analogy for this. One faction gets a white whale, and the other one gets a bluefin.
Yeah, I don't
Imagine.
see them doing something like that with regards to like paratrooping or
But,
airdropping. Like those, or
but
okay, sorry, not paratrooping. Paratrooping, I think they could have more room for, but with airdropping specifically and transport, I don't see it as much. I don't know. We'll see.
what?
But
But what? Okay, but what if they have? What if let's say, for example, the warden like cargo plane. What if the warden cargo plane can like land in water to like and then you can pluck crates out of it like a storage depot, like almost basically like a mobile long hook or sorry, more
you mean like a
specifically like a
freighter?
like a freighter or like a bluefin. And then the colonial one is you don't land at all. You just drop it. You just drop it on the ground and it gets a parachute. That
Um,
both factions get a cargo plane. That's what the dev said on the label. But completely unique, completely asymmetric outcome.
I think my big beef there would be that like a large thing that I think something that has been repeatedly mentioned is the ability to like airdrop. I might be like hallucinating here, but I swear it's been mentioned multiple times. The ability to airdrop like supplies into encircled towns was like part of the dev vision for like that kind of thing. So I doubt like the ability to airdrop supplies would be faction exclusive, especially just because like
Whoa,
especially
I
because
don't
like
know. I don't
also
know.
also
One faction can have a submarine that can like
yeah, but
resupply anywhere on the map, and the other faction has to go back to the dry dock without using a bug.
yeah, but which of those is the good submarine, right?
I,
Also, I don't think we're gonna have a transport that's capable of moving what 5 shipping containers. That sounds absurd. Maybe
no, no,
one.
no, 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 no. Okay, not shipping containers, but maybe like you make a pallet of crated B mats or something
I
like
think.
that,
Well, no,
and then you yeet the pallet
I
out
think
the back of the plane.
if we're sticking with like the cross between tanks and naval like concept, I think the whole thing of planes is that the barrier to entry is going to necessarily be like team cooperation where it might be relatively easy to build a plane, but to have any impact you're going to need to use them in force, like something Berlin airlift where you need to have like a shitload of planes flying these like resupply missions if you want to keep somewhere that's encircled supplied, right? Because each
Yeah.
plane has even though the planes are going to be really fast and be able to like airdrop in supplies, like the actual cargo that they're going to be capable of carrying isn't going to be as much as ground-based logistics, right?
No, it won't be. No, no, I agree. You're paying the fact that you can put any supplies anywhere on the map, anytime that you want.
You're paying a
At
premium
the
for that in
at,
terms of yeah.
you're paying you're getting the versatility of dropping resources exactly where it's needed for the cost of there's no fucking way a partisan can mess with you. So
Unless
you're not
I
so.
mean, do you count a fighter as a partisan?
I don't know. We'll have to see it. We'll have to see. We'll have to see the actual capabilities of aircraft because maybe not. I
I
mean,
well,
it,
the whole thing I would imagine is that if you have air support, you just like hold the skies and then airdrop in supplies, right? Like the thing that I
we'll have to
imagine,
look at. We'll
huh?
have to look at the numbers. If this is just we'll have to see what the impact of the weapons do. I mean, do you
Oh yeah,
regard
I
an
mean,
armored car a partisan vehicle? Technically, yes, it can kill. It can kill a logi truck. But late game, where 80 garrisons and mines and
well, I
the
mean,
basic infantry has like a bane can insta kill an AC. Is it
I
really
thought
a
you were
partisan?
saying,
Yeah.
I thought you were saying the type of aircraft would like influence the way that thing is outcoming, and now you're telling me that a fighter wouldn't be able to take down a transport.
Uh, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. But will a scout plane be able to take down a transport? Probably not.
No, you're
Will a
changing it.
fighter?
You're
Yeah.
changing it. I didn't say a
No,
scout
I mean,
plane. I said a
wow.
fighter. I said as a
Well, is it?
fighter a partisan.
I thought you said that. I thought you just said any. I thought you said any, could any plane
No,
be a
I
partisan?
specifically said fighter. Anyway,
Oh, then yeah, sure. Then then it is much as a light tank could be your favorite vehicle in the game. A light
Yeah.
tank could be a partisan as well.
Yes,
You could get a
truly.
partisan light tank,
I
sure.
just
Uh,
there's no way airdropping is going to be faction exclusive. That feels like paratrooping. Like it feels like
but
like if you want to say that there's maybe like you can carry more or you can like do some like unique
no,
thing or like you can one plane
that
can
would
travel
suck.
further or like
Dude, that would suck
no, 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 no,
if
no, no. There can
but-
be more interesting stuff, or maybe like one faction gets a super transport and one gets a super bomber, where one can carry two shipping containers that they can paradrop, and the other can carry like a super bomber that just shits out bombs. But I just don't think that you're gonna have this super cool capability that's gonna be like super restricted. Because again, if you to use your own example of like one sub can resupply, that's a resupply. That's a like a lot like that's it. Their capabilities are like their capabilities. Even if one is way better than the other, their capabilities air quote and like the things that they do are the like air quote the same. One just has like an X factor of a shitload of downsides for the ability to resupply, and yeah, and it's like I feel like because it's not going to be like one side just can't do this thing, right? Unless like because I don't consider resupplying at sea to be like on the same level as can you even airdrop. I don't know, that just does not sound nearly the same in terms of how much I would value either of those capabilities. Like I think everyone universally would say that like the ability to paradrop in supplies is like just way more obviously impactful as a capability than resupply at sea. No?
sure. But then here's the ultimate. Okay, I guess this will be the ultimate
This is gonna have to be like
litmus
the
test.
final thing because we're getting
No,
over time. But
okay, here's the ultimate litmus test of yes you agree or no you disagree. Do you think collies will have an amphibious capable aircraft there? Yes or no?
At all?
That's the litmus test.
Wait,
That's the at all.
at all?
All. At all.
I'd say
That's
probably.
the litmus
I'd say
test.
they probably will, but like I don't know if it's gonna. Like you said, I think it's gonna be mostly Warden amphibious planes if I had to guess. But like, will they have like? I wouldn't necessarily like. I could see a world where they don't have an amphibious plane, just purely because I don't know. It's a similar thing of like a plane being able to land on water is something that I think I'd rank it a little bit above the Trident's ability to restock at sea, but in no way is it the same as like, oh, you can paradrop at all, right? Like you can or you can airdrop at all, right? Like I don't know. I just don't see it.
Okay, so you do think at the very least then maybe we have maybe this will be the asymmetry then. Maybe collies have one plane that can like let's say the dive bomber, for example. Let's say the dive bomber is the only aircraft that can land on aircraft water for collies. And wardens have let's say 3 or 4 aircraft capable of doing that. Their scout plane, a fighter plane, a bomber, and a cargo plane, for example.
I don't think it would be that many, but like if you want to say like wardens get like 3 amphibious planes, sure.
Sure. And then the lob side to that is, or the alternative to for colonial gameplay then is, the devs go and say, well, collies tend to yeet tanks a lot in their tanks line, so we're going to give them like an quote unquote mass production fighter plane, for example, or a mass production snuff
I would
fighter.
fucking kill myself if they did that shit.
I would make 10 million of them and sit above my naval airstrip. Oh, not
I
sorry,
don't
navals. My
want to deal
airstrip
with
just-
another fucking. Oh, you get 10 armats cheaper, but your thing does nothing well. I will.
Dude,
No.
I'm just gonna point this out there. Our current like regiment lead, natural born loser, he said that the moment Airborne comes out and we get the first plane that comes off the production line, he is literally slamming it into the Great Warden Dam and to see what happens to it. So there are some people that would be perfectly fine and okay to have a mass production fighter. So you might be unique in this sense.
Unfortunately, the devs have let us all down by ensuring that what was supposed to be a summer update will not let us recreate 9/11. It's truly a tragedy.
Well, hopefully, if we play Collie, we'll have more than just a second plane has hit the towers. Maybe a third, fourth, fifth plane, and then one Warden plane shows up to counter it.
Yeah, we'll see. But
Okay, here's my
anyway,
closing thoughts. All right, let's do closing thoughts. Here's my closing thoughts.
yeah.
Um, I
Let's
don't think
let's wrap it back around to the dev blog. Like closing thoughts mostly related to the dev blog. Yeah.
mostly it's devlog. We're going to get multiple planes. That's a given on release.
Okay.
Hopefully balanced to some degree, but I disagree with you in the fact that we're just. I disagree with the fact that we're going to have not perfect
Wait,
symmetry,
no.
symmetry, but very very close symmetry to
You are no.
every
No.
each faction is going to
You are
have.
not understanding. No.
No. I'm saying that we're going to have.
This isn't a closing
Gonna,
statement.
no, this is a closing statement. Listen to my statement. Let me finish.
not
Let me finish. No, let me finish.
It's opening. It's opening a can of worms.
No, it's not opening a can of worms. Just listen. This is my closing statement. We're going to have each faction is going to have a classification of aircraft available to it, but they're not going to be the same.
I'm not saying they will. You're fucking lying. Where?
Fine. Well, that's my closing statement.
Okay.
There's gonna be a bomber
You
class.
say it's a disagreement.
One is gonna have a bomber. Collie's gonna have a bomber, but they're not gonna be the same plane. They're gonna have different aspects.
I think my problem is that you're. I think my problem is that you're over and understating certain capability differences as being way less impactful, or way more or way less impactful than I see them to be. And for some reason, I'll give you an example of something that I think is a relatively substantial capability gap. And then you'll say, like, oh, no, that's not that much. Or then I'll say, like, I think this is what we'll see for this. And then you'll say, oh, no, those are different planes. Actually, I'll be honest, it's more of the former than the latter. But,
all right, fair.
Closing statements, I don't know. I was not really prepared to give a closing statement. Wait, No, I asked you for your closing thoughts. I wasn't really implying that I had much more to say. I think it's
here's your closing thoughts, so I can understand where you're coming from.
My closing thoughts. No, you're not about to summarize. Okay, the problem is that you already tried to summarize my position, and I disagree with what you said. My position is very simple. I think that we will have probably one of every single category of thing, and then potentially, not probably, potentially see things like one faction gets 2 bombers, one faction gets 2 fighters, one faction gets like 2 transports, one faction gets 2 2 scouts or whatever, right? Like I could see that, and then on top of that, there will be significant asymmetry, but not in terms of capabilities. Like as an arsenal, maybe on like one bomber to one bomber, there will be a significant capability gap. But when you compare like the fact that one faction is getting 2 bombers, those 2 bombers combined will have like the same capabilities as the faction that gets 1 bomber. Or the same thing goes for transports. Like one faction will get a more potent transport that has a greater flexibility of options to it, but then the other faction will get 2 transports to make up for the fact that they are not getting the same capabilities. Does that all like make sense? Yeah?
That makes sense. And I agree that is, I will use the same word as you did, that is the more probable outcome that we're going to get.
So is it just that you want something different, but you're not, because I'm saying what I think will happen, not what I want, necessarily.
I'm going to agree with that was most likely that is going to happen. It kind of sounds like you want that to happen. I don't think you want another vastly...
Well, I don't think anyone wants
imbalanced major update. I don't think you want a vastly imbalanced major update like we get.
Okay, no one wants another naval, and no one wants to... what?
Sane people. Just to frame that. I don't think any sane people wants another naval update. I'm fairly sure there are some real fucking sweaty.
You can find someone to support any niche weirdo position, but like that doesn't mean that it's like a normal, valid position to hold on this. Anyway, just to wrap things up there, I'm hoping naval or not. I'm hoping planes will not make the same mistake that naval did. The delay doesn't give me, like, some people are like, oh, this delay is a positive thing because it means that they're giving more. I don't really share the same view. I'm gonna hold my judgment of what the fuck to think about this update, like until I actually see stuff. That said, what they have shown so far has got me excited. I think that even if it's a shit show, it might be a fun shit show, but there's always the worry that it's a boring shit show. I think, like, Foxhole is at its best when it's fun and not a shit show, but it's at its second best when it's a shit show but still fun. I think there's been a number of times though recently where you get an update that makes the game a shit show but also incredibly boring. And the worst thing that Airborne could be is boring, and I don't think it will be, but we will see. So
I don't think it's gonna be boring. I don't think it's gonna be boring. Just the amount of crazy shit people are gonna do. So I agree. It's not gonna be boring, but it might be a little bit infuriating.
It's also the fact that they've been working on this for like I think 2.5 years now.
Oh yeah, like dude. Okay. Final statement then, and I'll
no, not another. Okay, just real quick.
What? It'll be a final one. Okay.
Yes.
Way back when Naval was announced, I think it was Max or it was Julian said something along the lines of, "Man, these things are really fun to fly, or I mean to steer." And they already.
I'm gonna be so disappointed. I just realized yeah. This recording might be too long to fit on my drive because I only had like.
We'll see.
I only had like 4 gigabytes available on my main drive.
You'll be fine.
And my GeForce Experience would go to my like terabyte, which I had like 60 gigabytes for. I don't know if this is gonna save. Oh fuck!
We'll see.
Well, if you're seeing this, thank you. This has been Trunch Talk. I'm Lek. I'm gonna pause it. I'm gonna end this now and hope to God this recording saved. Bye.